This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Program. The content is provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership are not responsible for the content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. And now, the host of the T Martek Hour, Joe Martek.
See, I control all this stuff.
So you didn't turn us on even when after.
Heck no.
Pay no attention to the
Pay attention.
You're late, man.
You need to learn how to get into radio.
Why?
Now that's the $64,000 question. Now the first question is, why are you in radio?
Well, because I had a news director tell me I was too old. That's why. That's how I got into radio.
You're too old for radio. I'm getting in.
Well, you know what? I hate to tell you, but you're too old for almost anything.
That's true.
I mean, not that I don't resemble that, but 340-1590, 340-1590. It's the Dan and Joe Show with special guest, prosecuting retired attorney from Wisconsin, Alan Love. First show of the year.
Absolutely. We've got to start somewhere.
Got to start somewhere. Here it is. We're in our.
I'm trying to figure out how to turn my new phone on. I'm not smart enough.
We are in our 15th year, Dan.
That's amazing.
I mean, the fact.
That's longer than all your marriages combined, almost.
No, I've got 37 cumulatively, but my longest one was 13.
We got it beat.
So wait a minute. How many women?
More than one.
More than one.
More than one.
But under a
less than 3,000.
Less than a half dozen.
Yeah. Oh Lord, he saved me, Alan.
Can I wait
us?
to contribute until the show gets interesting?
Until it gets interesting. Wait a minute, this isn't interesting.
Well, I'll tell you, I almost forgot to take my most important pill this morning, my Smart Pill. It's a pill that helps me to keep up with your exponentially illusionary mind.
Did you hear about this guy was talking to his redneck buddy, and he said, I got some smart pills. He says, well, how do you know they make you smart? Well, try one. He goes, God, that tastes like rabbit crap. He says, you're getting smarter already. You remember that old joke, Dan?
That's right.
Is that bringing you back when you were a kid? It's amazing how these things sit way in the back of your head.
They're in
and
there.
Once in a while they come jumping out.
You know what sits in the front of my head? 340-1590. That's what sits there.
Back in '04, Dan Warren, independent insurance agent, Greg Fasula, attorney, and Joe Martek, financial advisor, decided to start doing radio shows, and the concept was basically pretty simple. Each one of us had a different area of expertise, and we could answer questions for people that would listen. And over a period of time, we added Ms. Victoria Lloyd, Remax of Stewart, real estate, and Mr. Mike Powell, mortgage broker, because obviously those became monster subjects during this last recession. And to put it mildly, we never dreamed we would be doing shows 15 years later. It's probably only 14 and a half, but who counts?
We're in our 15th year.
We're in our 15th year.
It's like when you were little, you used to say, well, I'm 2.5. I'm 3.5.
Right. That was before I could count.
That's right.
Can you wait till I was 5.5?
That's right. That's right. You know, it's amazing how smart some kids are.
Yeah.
Not to brag on my grandchildren, but that's what grandparents do.
Of course they do.
So my youngest daughter, Megan, her little boy, he's sitting in the back of the car. Megan asked the two oldest boys what their phone number was, and he rattles it off. And she's never tried to tell him the phone number. He just been listening and remembered it.
How old is he?
He just turned 4.
Wow.
Well, that's pretty good.
Okay, yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. No, but it's the sponge
And
of a child.
He now says, I count the math in my head. Give me a number and I'll figure it out.
Well, now he doesn't know what he's talking about, neither do you, but he likes it.
Yeah. He'll say, I did that problem in my head, Papa. Oh.
Did you have a good Christmas?
I had a great Christmas. It was loud.
Well,
When you have
because you
four
got
little
little
boys
kids, yeah.
running around, but there was no blood, no broken bones. Everyone was happy. Took the boys out playing golf. Now,
Not one visit to the emergency
Not
room?
one. Not one. Now, we have a
That's
bunch
disappointing.
of like
I mean,
what we
that's-
used to call helicopter parents who all hover around.
Yeah, right.
And like I said, there'll be no injuries on my watch.
So let's see. Your kids don't have more than 1 or 2 children apiece, right?
Well, Megan has 3.
3, okay.
Teresa has 3.
Well, they should not be
And Brett has
helicoptering
2.
as much.
Well, the older ones no, but we had 5 little ones.
Yeah.
So and all the little boys hover around the new baby girl.
Yeah.
They all want to be the one holding her or whatever. So, but it all worked good.
I will tell you, I had a.
As long as they just don't spike her.
No, they don't spike her.
I had-
okay.
It's amazing how
They
gentle
poke her
they
in the
are.
eye, little.
Grab her
minor.
under the chin and carry her around.
I'm telling you what. I had a young lady that worked for me for quite a few years, and I remember asking her one day after Christmas, "How was your Christmas?" She goes, "Actually, we had a pretty good one. The police didn't come this year."
Please didn't come this year.
And then I said, "Yeah, really?" She goes, "No, I'm serious. This is the first year I can remember they didn't come."
It's funny, depending on who we were dealing with. We went to a brand new Spanish remote, and I said, you have to understand, with all the music and stuff like that, it really isn't a good remote until we have at least a couple police
Show
show up.
Now we know.
and the client has his big eyes.
Now
What?
we know it's a live show now.
Yeah. Boy, isn't that the
Oh,
truth?
boy. Yeah.
So anyway, the concept of the group was simple, and it's worked extremely well. We've been able to help a lot of people, answer a lot of questions. And what happens is now, Dan, here we are today, the first day of the new stock market. And Alan, as I was driving in, it's doing a relatively small tank, down a couple hundred points, the Dow is, et cetera. And they've got some pretty smart people on there talking today on CNBC.
Joe, you always have doom and gloom people.
Oh, yeah.
Who are always right eventually. And
Well-
then they say, I've been telling you
Yeah.
for the last 10 years that this was going to happen. And they've missed 10 years of opportunity.
Well,
Have you noticed that new company that popped up out of MetLife? How all these spots start showing up the last 2 weeks. If the market's down, you're protected. It's so funny. It's
Well,
man.
it's there's a situation that and I talk about this quite a bit on the thing. The market is the market. If you ever see these commercials, one of the biggest guns in the whole world says, "Hey, if you've got more than $500,000, call me." Well, no kidding, because he can do better for you than mutual funds.
Or so he says.
Or so he says. Now, what he does, so people don't know, he's basically going to charge you a fee every year to manage your money. But what he's going to do
a
is
handsome fee.
well, it's let's just say it's not, and in my opinion, it's not that much, because if he earns his clients 10 and he takes 1, they made 9, and then that's a fair
They
thing.
should be thrilled.
They should be happy. So what his claim to fame is, if you are a big investor, $500,000 or more, you should not be in diversified mutual funds.
Now, what does that mean for someone who doesn't know? Does that mean like potentially volatile mutual funds?
Well, not necessarily.
Aren't they
no.
all volatile?
Well, let's just take the Standard & Poor's 500. That's a mutual fund. You can buy a mutual fund that copies every one of those things, but the mutual fund company takes a fee. Well, what he's saying is, don't pay the mutual fund company, pay me a fee instead, and I'll only put you in the good S&P 500 companies instead of all of them, if that's how you end up. Now, all of that works really well. Now, understand, the mutual fund company is going to make less than 1% a year, and when you get into these, quote, index ones, usually it's a fee of like 0.25%, or it could be 0.3 or 0.4, but it's usually less than 0.5% a year. And why is that important? Well, back again, you don't have this $500,000 or this $1 million, so now it allows you to run with the big dogs and get diversified and be in as many as 500 companies, which is the backbone of America. And it's, Alan, what's the S&P 500 average for the last 20 or 30 years?
Approximately 10.8%.
Per year.
Yeah, compounded, yes.
Yeah. So this.
But
this
you said for like 20 or 30 years. What if I'm 70 some years old, and I say, I really don't have 30 years old to average it out. I just need to hold on to what I got.
Well, now here comes, it was kind of an interesting one. I had this fella come in to see me, a year ago or so, and he said, I'm not happy with my broker, Joe. I said, well, what happened? He says, well, a year ago I had $1.5 million. Now I'm down to $1 million. And my broker says, well, give me some time and I'll get it back for you. And he goes, I'm 80. He said, how much time?
Right,
How
yeah.
much time? Well, the key is this, and what Dan was just saying. There are ways to protect. So this thing with MetLife, there's a program out there that allows you to be in the market, and yet it puts insurance on it in order to protect the money under two circumstances. One, in case you die on the wrong day, you want to make sure your wife or your kids are protected. Now, I joke about this dying on the wrong day, but listen, your kids would be happier and your wife if you die when the market's up. They get more money. If the market's down
yeah.
and you die, they get less money. Well,
I see. Yeah, I get that.
so the insurance company very often will say, okay, fine, we'll have a death benefit in there that'll protect the money. Sometimes they have a 5% per year guaranteed growth. Some of them every quarter, or they step it up. So basically what they do is, number one, is protect the family. Now, I'm supposed to bring in at this point right now, my compliance people say you have to know the claims paying ability of the insurance company.
How would I know that?
Well, number one, you can check them out online. But number two, if you talk to your agent, you can just say, how is my company rated? Well, like Dan.
Like A+, AM Best, Standard & Poor's.
So how do you?
Moody's.
Okay, how do you look for, if you're just a normal Joe, a rating service for insurance companies?
Well, the easy thing is you can actually call the insurance company and they'll tell you what it is, or you can call
right, and
no,
they'll tell you.
No, they won't.
They'll
They'll tell you. They'll tell
But
you
if
the
you don't
straight-
trust them, you can go online and I'm telling you. Well, let's suppose I'm an elderly guy, more
Right.
elderly than I already am, and I
Like
don't
Joe and me.
like you guys.
Yeah.
And I
well,
don't
especially like you, 'cause
and I
you
don't
look
Well, I
like-
know that.
I don't have a computer.
Right.
How would I find out? Is there a way?
Well, one, you call the company directly. Two, you call your agent. Now, let me tell you, if you're dealing with Dan Warren, Joe Martek, or let's say anybody that's been in business a long time, let's assume that these guys have credibility, integrity, et cetera.
They do?
Let's assume that.
They do.
But we
We're
will
gonna
tell them
assume
that
it.
we will tell them the truth. Now, Ken, let me tell you something. In our business, there's nothing worse than lying. Nothing.
Oh, no, absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
if we misrep or lie, whatever it might be, I mean, this is deep caca. So literally, and then the second side of the coin, if as a matter of business, I try to deal with only the top-rated companies. If a client comes along and says, Joe, I'm looking at this company, what do you think? And I'll say, well, it is not top-rated, but it has a good rating, but it's not as good as the top-rated companies. They say, well, I want to try it anyway, then I'm fine. But
Well, like in my business, Joe, sometimes I'll sit down and we'll counsel with people, and some of the things we'll discuss would be, for the property and casualty side of insurance, who is the reinsurance carrier?
Right.
What is the company rated? Isn't it an admitted carrier in the state of Florida? So those are all things that should give some sort of warm and fuzzy feeling to my client, knowing that I've done my due diligence and I have provided them with a good source of insurance. Now, if they have a very risky business,
Right.
let's suppose they're a bar in a bad area and the cops are there every day, it's going to be a tougher place. But I should be able to get them with a good non-admitted company like, let's say, Lloyd's of London.
which is the highest-rated company in the world, by the way.
It just takes a little longer sometimes to get paid.
The key.
That's one of our insurance policies that Carol has. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
one of the things that happens is there's the saying in real estate works for everything. There's a butt for every saddle. So literally, nobody wants you, but there is somebody that'll take you. But you're going to have to pay for it. So back again to this bar in the bad neighborhood with fights and knives and all that stuff. Nobody really wants them, but there is a company that'll take them, but they're going to pay
For
dearly.
the right price.
Yeah.
And you know what? A lot of times when I have a client and we pull, let's say, what's called loss runs, where you say, this is how much money we've paid into premium, and this is how many gazillions we've gotten in claims. And I go, oh, gosh, it's going to be a hard sell. I'll bring in a loss control guy, and we will try to create a program for you to help eliminate some of your potential problems and get you out of that problem you'd created for yourself.
The key thing is that when we look at what is the right thing for you? Well, there's no such thing as one answer for anybody. Each person is an individual. When I look at my clients, let's say somebody says, Joe, I've got $10,000 to invest. That's all I've got. Well, I'm sure not going to go talk about the $500,000 $1 million strategy.
No.
We're going to say, hey, let's get you as protected as possible, because if that's all you've got, let's protect
But
it.
how do you protect yourself, Joe? If I come in, I'm 85 years old. You know that I should be a little more conservative in
Right.
my investments, and I say, this is what I want, Joe. I want, Bolivian gold stock
Right.
for all my money in there, because I know that they're going to make me a lot of money. How do you protect yourself?
It's an interesting thing.
That's like I had 90% of Russian yaks.
That's right.
I actually had a client do that some years ago. Now, it was Dan Luck. You remember back when Ford Motor Company tanked?
I do.
And we all bought it for like $1.50, $1.80 a share. Well, this client of mine, he only had like $3-4 grand. That was his entire savings, and he's living Social Security, living as meagerly as you can. And he goes, Joe, I just want to invest this. And I said, okay, fine. You should really keep that in the bank for emergencies. He said, nope, I want to invest it. And I want to make it as risky as possible, because $2,000 is never going to do anything for me. So,
and I understand that philosophy.
yeah, so we did. Now, literally, it became a home run because his 2 went up to 10 in a relatively short
Did
period.
he invest in Ford?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it obviously came back big.
Oh, big time,
Big
big
time.
time.
Yeah.
But he had to sign a document saying he was dumb as a stump, he was old, addle-brained. I didn't talk him into it. I'm kidding, but basically.
No, but you have to do that sometimes.
Yeah, I've got to make sure. It's like penny stocks. If somebody wants to buy marijuana stock or a penny stock, they're high risk, and they've got to sign a document that says
And high is the appropriate word, Joe.
high, unless you get hemp oil. Anyway, it becomes a situation that there's many things out there that people can buy for very low cost, but the odds of it making money are very slim, because the reason they're a penny stock is they don't have much value. Normally if you take a big company and they've got lots of assets, they have a book value, then you divide that by the number of shares, and that gives you the price per share. Then they have a price to earnings ratio, don't you love all these words, that says, what are you going to make next year? And then they come up with a price. You remember 2 years ago, Dan, we sat here and said, hey, listen, market's in trouble. EPE's 22.
20 to 30 to 1.
Yeah, it's not good. Alan, you were agreeing with that. Then all of a sudden, Trump got elected, and bam, the market took off like a shot. Price to earnings ratios got better. Today, it's around 15, which is the lowest it's been for eons. I don't know how long, but I was listening to, it's been almost forever. Price to earnings, normally they go out 6 months to a year estimating what the company is going to do. That's why a public company announces every so often what they're doing and what they have to do it by audited statements.
They have to do every quarter, right?
Yeah, well, I think they audit every quarter. They don't have to announce every quarter, but they're most of them do. They let people know, hey, what we're doing, what we're not doing, and what we plan on doing, and what we expect to happen in the next 3 months, 6 months, year, 2 years, etc.
Well,
So-
didn't we have like a really good Christmas with the retailers this year?
Monster.
Don, do you think it's going to reflect well up the road?
Well, here's where and Alan, you listen to the same stuff I do, and I'm all day long with CNBC in the car, at home, whatever it is, listening to all these experts come up. Today, Professor Siegel, who's the Wharton School of Business, Mr. Hot Stuff, very optimistic. And Dan, like you said, most of the time we hear the negatives that come on the radio. Very optimistic that the American economy is very, very good. And here comes the wrinkles. Russia, China, what's going to happen within the next 3 months to 6 months? Most of the, let's say, not negative people say the China thing is actually working majorly into our favor, because China's slowing down, and they can't afford to keep slowing down. So they've got to come up to an agreement, because we are it. They've got to agree with us, because America is the land of milk and honey, and we control basically the whole globe when it comes to this economics.
So what are they doing with those ghost cities that they built?
Well,
Ghost cities? What's a ghost city?
There's nobody living there.
And when the reason for that is no one can afford to buy it, or what?
Yeah. Well, they haven't found a way to give them a job yet in those ghost cities.
Yeah, because most of them are farmers, and they're trying to bring everybody into the city.
But the gross national product for our country this last year was between 3 and 4%, which was very good for
That's
us.
great.
China has been 7 to 10%, 11%.
Based on our money.
But the whole key is this: they are a majorly expanding economy with tons of labor available, and they have picked up all of these sources of manufacturing from all over the world.
Here's a job for you, Joe, that I want you to look into for me.
Uh-oh.
Based
Give it to
on-
my assistant, Alan.
Based on my observation of my Christmas,
Yeah.
I need to invest in cardboard box manufacturing. Because every day when I came home, Nancy Ann had a pile of boxes right out there in front of my house.
You know, it's funny you should say that, because there was a cartoon in the newspaper today. I think it's Dilbert. It's Dan's ringing.
That's my phone.
Anyway,
Told you I'm not smart enough to turn it off.
there was this cartoon in there, and it shows this manager talking to one of the engineers and said, "So what, are you letting a lot of people go?" He says, "No. Why do you think that?" He says, "Well, a whole bunch of cardboard boxes came in today." He says, "Well, we just are storing cardboard because it's a good thing to do." He says, "How come it's got individual people's names on each one?" But the key thing.
Well, somebody has to make that cardboard.
Oh, listen, Dan, here comes any business. If you and I
You think Amazon makes their own boxes?
No, but they might, because you know what happened? Different companies down the road, back, and this is part of history, did such things, and then they became antitrust. It became another problem. But the key thing, you just mentioned Amazon.
Right.
Amazon may have had the biggest Christmas ever. They haven't announced yet because they haven't done the final accounting. So what you were saying, literally retailers, e-commerce was monster this year, monster. And why? Because everybody's working. They're making money. When people make money, they spend it. Nothing new there. So listen, the economy here is humming right along fine. We are looking at some political derision.
Now, what is that?
That means we got Democrats that don't like Republicans and Republicans who don't want to talk to Democrats.
You know,
Well, that's only been going for 200 years.
and
so.
that's a shame because they were all elected to do the people's business, not their party's business.
I was talking to one of my main company people in California this morning, guys that does trading, and he's probably the only conservative in the whole state. And I said, "Do you have any friends?"
Now you know you're wrong about that, Joe.
I know.
There are probably more conservatives in the great state of California than you would expect. The problem is
They all live in Orange County.
well, you have these huge,
Well,
huge
actually,
pockets.
that's where he lives.
Yeah, you got huge pockets of people who control it, who
Yeah.
live in L.A. and other big cities.
You talking
who are
Jerry
super,
Brown?
Super liberal. But you've got some. In fact, there's been great discussion about splitting up the great state of California
Yeah.
because it doesn't represent its people.
Yeah, the valley people are not the city people. That's for sure.
Well, and they can't do it because of water.
Of course.
That's good.
Well, the valley people own the water. See, so
That's
they
right.
come-
That's right.
The city.
It was so funny. My good buddy Jerry Brown. I really love the man. He's about ready to leave office, and says, the new governor is really going to have his hands full with that train project and all of
That he started, yeah.
So he lists about 3 projects that he started.
No.
And Gavin Newsom, there's no way in hell they can pay for it. And he knows it. And he also mentioned the retirement fund in California.
Another minor problem.
Yeah, they don't have enough. They overpromised, underperformed, and now the cities are on the verge of bankruptcy. Many have already declared bankruptcy.
Well, and the state workers, i.e. CHIPs, highway patrolmen, state fire, all that, they're getting pink slips.
So let me
not pink
yeah.
slips, but
let me ask you this:
IOUs.
Is
Yeah.
it my responsibility as a resident of Florida to undergird the stupidity of California?
If you ask the people in California, they say yes.
But that's wrong because they got all these benefits that I didn't get, and now they want me to pay
But that's
for.
why there are states' rights. That's why we have 50 states which have their own systems, and then we have the United States over the top of it. But literally, why are so many people moving to Texas and Florida, manufacturing operations moving out of California? I mean, Texas is one of the happiest states alive right now. They picked up 1,800 companies last year. So, I mean, it's big business.
People might have missed this on the news, but we've been talking about the United States being the technological leader of the world. But I saw two things in the last couple of weeks on the news that I think are concerning. Number one, China has put up a mega satellite in Argentina, and when they were asked what the purpose of the satellite is, their response was to measure and get data on the dark side of the moon. I don't particularly think they're telling the full story.
Is that
And
and the lander from China landed on.
Well, I heard
that's the Pink Floyd
I heard
version,
that the
right?
sub account to that was they're looking at what's happening on the dark side of Chicago.
and
That's called the South Side.
And
the
the,
south
o-
side.
the other thing that concerns me more is
Opinions expressed.
the other thing that concerns me more is Senor Putin over in Russia has launched a missile which supposedly goes 5 times the speed of sound.
I heard it was 20 times the speed of sound.
Or 20 times the speed of
Guess what?
sound.
A few more bottles of vodka
And
will be
it,
going even
it
faster.
can't,
Let me
and,
just-
and supposedly it can't be shot down.
And our guys have no clue.
But but here comes the magic. Here comes the magic, what Dan just said. What we have done, the American military, we have created more vodka producing in Russia so we keep all these guys drunk so they can't find the button.
That's right.
Guys, in spite of what you just said, Mr. Producer's husband, excuse me, I get you confused. America is it. We're it. We're the top gun. I don't care what anybody says. Behind the scenes, what we are hearing is not everything that is reality. Are you really concerned that America is going to be blown off the map by China or Russia?
No.
I mean, not even 1/1,000,000th of a chance.
By the Nordic nations.
Well, now if it was
Have
Sweden
you
or
seen-
Norway, yeah.
have you se- have
They
you
got
seen
6
it?
million people there.
Well, have you seen the stats, though, in their schools?
Well, schools are brilliant.
They are.
Well, guess what? They belong to the old system. Discipline. Hey, you and me, Jesuits. There was no ADD, no ADHD. There was nothing except you will do well. You're not going to do well? We shoot you. Nothing serious.
Are you saying
large panels.
you didn't have the elf on the shelf? You had the belt on the shelf?
And let me just tell you.
or
I remember,
worse.
you know, it was funny when we talk about that. I'm in high school now, all boys Jesuit, and one of the kids mouthed off to the priest. He ran him to the window, hung him out the window, then closed the window. We're on the 3rd floor. He closed the window on his feet so he couldn't fall all the way out, and he hung there for the whole class. Can you? I mean, you can imagine that.
No, I can. There was something similar to that in our high school, yes.
All it amounts to is, let me tell you, there was very little discipline problem in that.
Alan just can't even believe this.
Well, I am just so happy I went to Hebrew school.
I'm just going to say, Hebrew school, well, first of all, you had to learn to speak Hebrew, which was almost impossible, so that was hard enough. Then, discipline, hey, but you had discipline at home. The Hebrew,
Yes, I did.
called
My
shame.
parents really were disciplinarians, but that's why I was able to get along in life the way I was. I was very blessed, as you all know.
When did you start getting along?
Before I met you.
Okay,
Before
good. I
I
feel
met
he's not fried yet. That was pretty good. 340-1590, 340-1590. So back again, when we try to do, literally, we can put investments together with insurance. Okay, what's the negative? Well, you got to pay the insurance company.
Well, they're assuming the risk.
Well, of course. See, that's the whole concept. So does anybody want to pay for insurance? No. Does anybody want to collect on insurance? No.
Yeah,
Why-
they do.
Well, yeah,
I
but,
can tell you for a fact they
but
do.
not legitimately. Let's put it that way.
Florida is ripe with fraud. Don't kid yourself.
Well, that's what I said. Not legitimately. How can I lie and get paid, which is a wonderful system? But
the problem is when I have friends whose children call me because they're adults now and say, I had a man knock on my door, told me he thought I had a roof problem from hail because he put a new roof on one of my neighbor's house and wants to get up on my roof and look to get me a new roof. Should I let him go up there? And I said to him, well, look, if he thinks you have hail damage, before you let him on your roof, look at your air conditioner. See if it has little dings on it. If you have a screen enclosed, are there any little holes? Did you park your car? Because it won't hail just on top of your house. So he said, no damage anywhere else. I go, chances are he's a fraud. All right, looking for business.
Chances are he'll climb up there and cause some damage. Then he has to fix it.
Well, the flip side is we all end up paying for that.
Of course we do.
Okay, so what's new in insurance in 2019
What's new?
After the
Well,
hurricanes?
It's not really what I would consider good news for most of people because of the worldwide catastrophes, not just the Florida catastrophes or Puerto Rico or now California,
Yeah,
but
we just looked
worldwide.
at our bill. It's
All
huge.
right? So all these insurance companies buy insurance. It's called reinsurance, and they insure all these countries, and that's ticking up. So if you took a big rate increase in your homeowner's insurance, you should call my office. Why? Because we have more than just one company. We have dozens of companies that we can review it with, but the overall trend is going to be up over the next couple of years. That's my prediction.
Now, I've heard you guys talk about Florida insurance companies, i.e., like a State Farm has got it.
State
a
Farm of
separate,
Florida.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not really State Farm. Well, I guess
It is,
sort
but
of.
it's
You know
State Farm.
it is, but here's what happened. Back when Andrew hit,
right.
you had many of the major rating companies, AM Best, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, go to these massive national companies and say, you're overexposed in Florida. You need to do something before we change your rating. And they go, oh, don't do that. Well, we'll come up with a plan. Plan A was get rid of everybody. The state jumped in and said, well, you just can't get rid of everybody overnight. It's going to take some time. Plan B, let's start another company, and we'll call it XYZ Company of Florida. So if it goes belly up, it won't affect our portfolio. My feeling as an agent is this.
That was wrong.
I think that was decent strategy on the business side.
Yeah, but wrong.
But if State Farm of Florida were to go into economic trouble, I believe 100% of my heart that the home office is going to step up and do what they're supposed to do, because they don't.
Do
want,
they have to legally?
They don't have
to legally.
But there's a moral obligation that we have as insurance companies, not always to do the letter of the law, but to also do what's right.
Well, speaking of, and then when you have, quote, an admitted company, which means the state of Florida has allowed them to do business in here and admitted them, you also pick up the protection of the state. Like,
absolutely.
Most people don't remember this, but when Hurricane Andrew hit, it put somewhere between 10 and 15 insurance companies out of business. But the state paid every claim. And what happens is the state collects money from every single insurance company every time a policy for anything is written. And
if it's an admitted company.
And that goes into this thing.
Oh, okay.
And then let's just say
Like a giant pool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just say XYZ company is going out of business. Very often the state says, okay, ABC company, DEF company, and HIJ company, you're going to take a piece of that business, and we're going to protect these people, and you have to take it right to the letter of that contract. Or you may not be allowed to do business.
Well, you want people to do the right thing.
Yep. Yeah.
Now, believe me, there are companies that I often see them doing the letter of the law. Like we had a carrier who had your fence protected under additional structures. But if you read the fine print of the policy, it said that the fence had to be built with the same material as the house. So if your house was concrete, you better have a concrete fence.
Yeah.
Well, luckily for me, the house was made out of wood, and the fence was made out of wood, but they had already denied the claim because their intention was not to pay those claims to begin with. Now, we got it resolved because I had to send photos, but sometimes I see insurance companies do things, they went to some seminar as to how to maximize profits, not how to maximize relationships with their clients.
I would think, Dan, and you've been around a long time, and so have I, that back 20, 30, 40 years ago, there was more potential fraud with these companies than there is today. Sometimes government regulation, who you and I are not big in favor of, is necessary.
Well, see, fraud is a strong word. What I would say is this. Many cases, the adjuster's job is to get the insurance company off the hook as cheaply as he can and make you happy.
Sure.
All right? So he's not going to go out of his way to find every little thing that you might think you should get paid for.
That's why attorneys have commercials.
Well, and that's why you should have a good agent who knows the contract.
There you go.
Who can come back and he can be your advocate and say to that adjuster, hey, you forgot about this clause. I expect you to belly up and pay that bill.
340-1590, 340-1590. And you have me turned down here, my man? Because we got Bulldog on the radio. Bulldog, my man, Happy New Year.
Happy best wishes to 2019 to you. Healthy, happy, prosperous. And prosperous reply, yeah.
Prosperous doesn't hurt a bit.
Directed at you, Joe.
That's you, Joseph.
Hey, listen, I'm looking forward to a very good year. I'm sitting here with Alan Love, and I said this last year, and we were wrong, that the S&P 500 would go up 10%, and it went up down to 6, I think.
Right.
The NASDAQ 100 is up 1 or down 1 for the last year. And I fully expect it to go up again 10% because there's nothing wrong. We have a political situation going that has got a lot of people nervous. And
Yeah, that's minor, Joe. I got some info that I need, sir.
info,
Yes,
go ahead.
from you. All right. Well, here's this young man who's setting foot into, putting away some money into investment.
Well, it's definitely not you because you're old.
Well, no, this is a young person
Oh, okay.
named Mike Endor Thomas or something like that.
Okay, go
Anyway, but his boss doesn't pay him so much, so
He's-
hopefully
He's going to
this
borrow it
min-
from you.
This minimum wage, boost will help him out quite a bit. So
Okay, go ahead.
that's a dig at you, Greg. There you go.
I understand. Go ahead.
But what would you advise people that, right now with the market being as it is, it's kind of a little risky proposition, but what would you...
Now, stay still.
I get this- I
Stay
get
still
this-
with what you just said. This is exactly the opposite. If you ask Warren Buffett, who's one of the biggest, most successful patriarchs of the market today, he'd say, hey, look, this is the best time to get in the market because you get in when it's up at the top, it's got no place to go but down. But you get in at the bottom. Here we go again. Alan brought it up. The S&P 500 has averaged better than 10% a year since 1930 or whatever the number was. But there have been years when it went down 25, and there's been years when it went up 25. Well, the key is this. If you buy when it's down, you now could be up as much as 50 at the end of the next year. So when I look at anybody today saying, do you think America's going out of business? Do you think America's blue chip companies are going out of business? The unemployment rate is magnificent. Today we're looking at political problems, meaning China, Russia, and America. We're looking at political problems, meaning Democrats don't like Republicans, vice versa. But our gross domestic product is strong. Dan
See,
was just
I would give a little different opinion. Here's what I would say. I would say if you go back in history, Joe, many of the big companies who were, Fortune 500 companies, 80, 90 years ago, they don't exist.
Right.
All right. I would tell a young person, buy the stock of a product that you use. Assume that you're not an idiot. And there are other people in this country who are also buying that product.
You're talking toilet paper.
Whatever product you use, buy that company because chances are that'll be around for a while. And then be a educated consumer of stocks and bonds. Learn a little bit about where you're putting your money. That would be my advice.
Bet the farm on Sears.
Yes.
Yeah.
On Craftsman.
Well, look
maybe
at
Craftsman.
There's people right now, many people that are saying, "Hey, buy GE. It's down to 6 and 7."
Come on.
Well,
I'm so tired.
but it's a monster company. You think it's going to go out of business? They're going to sell off some divisions, I guarantee.
You're going to sell off a lot of
Factions-
divisions.
Factions are gone.
But all it amounts
But if
to
you're
is
a young person, you probably don't go to Sears. You probably use another company, invest in that company.
Amazon. I mean, no, but here comes PE ratios. Theirs is off the wall. But guess what? They're a massive growth company, and they've gone bonkers.
Maybe.
How about Facebook?
Maybe.
How about cannabis stocks?
No.
Yes. Yes. No.
No. Well, here comes one of the problems with cannabis stock. There's no proprietary patents. Everybody can grow it in their backyard. There's going to be 100 stores.
It'll be just like alcohol. If you look back in history, when the government said to the American people, you can't have alcohol,
right?
And the American people had a little bit more backbone back then. They got their guns and said, we're going to have what's called the Whiskey Rebellion in our history. And the government backed down and said, okay, you can only make so many gallons for yourself.
Yep.
You can't sell it. You can give it away. But if you sell it, now you're in conflict with us because we don't want competition.
Unless you live in Tennessee.
Well, that did start moonshining, and I think you'll see the same thing with marijuana. They're going to say you can grow so much for yourself, but don't you sell it now. You're in competition.
The key thing.
No. It's marijuana is going to make it simply because all the states need money, and they can tax.
Yeah, but you're not looking at the investor. See, the investor is not going to make any money. I'm telling you, because there's no proprietary. Everybody in the world. Look, if I have a patent on a drug. And everybody
I got you. I see where you're going. Okay.
Marijuana, anybody.
I could patent my marijuana because I could genetically modify it and say this is Dan's super marijuana, and I am patenting it.
Well, then if you can
different.
find a way to do that, then you can win.
That's
because
exactly how the pharmaceutical industry works.
But they haven't done it
yet. They find a natural substance that then they have to modify it. Because, and not to get off subject, but I believe that God gave us the ability to cure all these diseases with stuff that's right here. But unless I can patent it or change it so I can make a patent on it, you'll never know about it, Joe.
Of course. Can't make a buck that way. Hey, listen, this is called free enterprise. Bulldog.
Yes, sir.
Back to your question.
Start growing some in the backyard.
That's our advice to the young man.
I've got a screen porch.
Doing
just fine, thank you. So expect a call from him, but or I hope he does.
Anyway, the bottom line is this. When I get a young guy and I'll say, okay, what's your goal that you're looking for money? He says, I don't really have a goal. I just want to make some money.
Exactly.
Well, the people that just want to make some money, very often they speculate and they're taking high risk. And there's nothing wrong with high risk. Understand that you might lose. But I don't know if you heard earlier in the show, I had this guy years ago, an old guy, had $2,000, and he says, that's all I've got, and I didn't want him to invest it. He said, yes, because if I lose it, it won't make any difference. And we went into Ford Motor Company stock at $1.15, 20, whatever it was, and it got up to $16 a share. Well, that's called a home run. But if he'd have lost that whole $2,000, it wouldn't have taken any food off his table.
Well, that's what happens, and this is where we're at with most of these people. We're making our bills perfectly, and we've got a little extra left over, but it's sitting at a bank at .000 out of
big number, right?
Right. So I want to do something creative with it, or investment-wise with it, because obviously children's are going to come, and child funds and things like that, and as your life progresses, you want to be in that upswing of it, because the earlier you invest, the more time it has to mature.
Very simple. Very simple. And you hit it on another show. Bulldog, I got another caller here waiting. It's good talking to you, my man. I can't wait to get together. Make sure you have the McAllen, and we're all set.
Okay, go.
I guess it says Victoria is on the line. You remember her?
Yes, hi. How are you?
We're good.
Happy New Year, girl.
Happy New Year. Did everybody have a great New Year?
Oh, yes. Watch the ball drop.
Actually, I was out on the boat at the sandbar, and all the noise woke me up, and I got up, and there was fireworks around. I mean, it was like a great big circle all the way around me. And Sailfish Point, which I'm sitting right behind, must have spent $20,000. It was just a nonstop.
From the clubhouse?
Yeah. Just. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, that was great. We were over at Harbor Ridge at a private party, and we were out at the pavilion on the river, and we could see all the fireworks going off at the same time.
Yep.
It was absolutely gorgeous, just gorgeous.
Yep. Hey, all good news. How about you? Hey, I just heard today that T-bills are down below 3 again, so Mike's got to be happy. Interest rates are down for mortgages again.
That's great. I still, Joe, I don't care where we've been or what we're doing. It's always still been a good buying time for everybody. And I don't want them to get scared because interest rates just fluctuate just a little bit. And it's still one thing we can write off as interest. So until it changes, it's still a positive thing.
All it does, it makes it easier for young people to qualify, or not say even just young, so old people too, because if interest rates are low, that helps them, to get their house. And that's what you and Mike do. You try to help people make sure they make the right decision at the right price.
And we do. And the other thing is that it doesn't cost a lot of money to buy a home, and people think it costs so much money, and it really doesn't. That's why they need to call us as if they're professionals, and we can, tell them exactly what they need and help them along the way.
Well, we always talk about that working backwards. First thing is to talk to Mike and find out what you qualify for. He'll run the credit check and let you know yes, no, or maybe. Then once you know what you can qualify for, then they go to you and you say, hey, here's what I qualify for. Fill that blank in.
Yeah. Now, interesting enough, it was kind of funny. We just sold to a young person that bought in a community that was a gated community in a condo, and those fees fluctuate. So I guess there was an increase at the first of the year that really nobody knew that was going to happen. And it's still not a great amount of money, but it still throws people off a little bit. But don't be afraid of that, because they don't raise those maintenance fees just for no reason. They always raise them a little bit because they need to fill a void or,
Well,
fill.
hey, it's dollar in, dollar out. I mean, on maintenance fees, there's no such thing as a padding.
And it's no different than if you had your own maintenance guy at your own home.
Yeah.
He's not going to keep cutting your grass for the same price for decade after decade. It's going to go up.
Sure.
I know, but see, people get really like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. But you're absolutely right, and I tell people, I pay $100 to cut my grass. I pay $100 for my pool. By the time you're done, you put out hundreds of dollars per month and cable.
The bottom line is that's it. Unless you can get Lenny to start pushing the lawnmower again, you got to pay.
No, I want to push the lawnmower. He won't let me. And then when I got a riding mower because I was going to go visit everybody in the neighborhood, he got scared. And I was going to have like a little bar in the back and cut your grass for $20.
Let me just tell you what. If I saw you coming to visit, I'd be scared too. But that's
not. First, you got to buy a lawn. You got to buy a house so I can cut your grass so I can come visit.
Yeah, I like cement.
You can paint it green.
Paint it green. Pretend we're in Arizona, right? Zero scape.
That's right. So tell people to call. We just took a nice, beautiful listing in a gated community for $149.9 under $150, a two-bedroom.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
One-car garage.
Yeah. Nice.
Does it have walls?
Yes, it does. It's a beautiful wall. And then we've got the Pines, which is Jensen Beach. Oh my gosh, who doesn't want to be in Jensen Beach for under $400 for $394 on the lake, and has a swimming pool.
Hear that? Listen, we're getting
Gators.
Our producer's getting all excited.
Gators.
Well, hey, they're free. You're wearing a Gator shirt.
No, I'm not.
Well, we like the Gators. They like us, so don't worry about it.
All right, Vic. Listen, Happy New Year.
Happy
Good
New
to hear.
Year.
Happy New
See you
Year.
guys soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
340-1590.
Now let's start an office pool.
For?
Find out when she will actually show up here. March? I've got March.
You got March.
Well, Vic, a lot of times she's on her way here.
Yeah, right.
And then she gets sidetracked. And she does. And I'll tell you what. She has come to parties at my house at least twice that I remember, and she says, I'm on my way, and she never showed. Because a client called her, a customer, and she just automatically she doesn't say tomorrow. She goes now. That's how she is.
Isn't that what you want?
Of course that's what you
you're
want. That's
in the market for?
340-1590, 340-1590. Now, we have a producer here who's supposed to be helping us along here. Oh,
Yeah.
4 fingers.
So-
now, that's a really stiff drink, Oh, 3
right.
fingers. It's still stiff.
So, Joseph, have you made any New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, my New Year's resolution this year is to make no resolutions.
Oh, that's not a good resolution.
It is. Which ones did you make, Chubby?
Well, here's what I've been thinking. I've been thinking, the Constitution says you got the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right?
Which one are you pursuing?
I'm going to pursue happiness.
I'm all for happiness. No.
Because, sometimes people think, happiness is just going to happen. Like around Christmas time and people get depressed.
Let's talk. Mike, you're on the radio. Thanks for calling.
Oh, thank you. Happy New Year. It's a happy day, and I want to find out what all you good, smart people think. What's your opinion about next Monday? Who's going to win the big game?
Well, Alabama.
Yeah, I'm kind of an Alabama fan, So that's.
Next question.
All right. And
if Greg Fasula was here, there'd be no discussion on that.
Are you all happy to know that the Democrats' great red hope has thrown her hat into the ring?
The red what?
Miss Elizabeth
You
Warren.
mean Pocahontas?
Well, the great red hope.
I like great red hope. Way to go there.
Oh, but
1,032nd.
Chance of winning.
Ms. Clinton was quoted as saying she's got to go through me.
Oh. Well, let me tell you what. I think that'd make a great ticket, the two of them together.
Like a tag team?
A tag team. Provide a lot of laughs for a lot of people.
They really would. I'm. Hey, and maybe it should be Nancy and Hillary, or Nancy.
I would pay to see Clinton and Donald debate again.
Wouldn't, no kidding.
That'd make a good pay-per-view. They can make millions.
It will be something.
Well, hey.
I learned last week why all these tall men throughout the ages have been drawn to and married pygmies. I never knew.
We're all waiting for the
Okay,
punchline.
Mike, go ahead.
The answer's simple. They're nuts over them.
Oh, Mike, don't quit your day job.
Let's keep smiling in the new year. That's the main thing, y'all.
Hey, listen, I'm very content and happy with everything except what is on the periphery, but understanding that the overall complexion is very good. So I'm looking for a very positive year, and I believe our leader is going to pull this thing off with China in spades, and it's going to make a monster.
I think he's going to sell them rice.
Hey, I think he's soybeans.
Soybeans.
Hey, Mike, Happy New Year, my man. Do we lose him? 340-1590. We got 1 minute left. We're winding down. Hey, we appreciate our faithful listeners, and I have bumped into a few others occasionally every once in a while.
At least once a week I'll run into somebody.
Yeah, and I get a kick out of him. Says, "Are you on the radio?"
Let's see if I'm right. I say the government shutdown ends before our next show.
I vote for you, but I doubt it. But they're coming to a compromise, right?
Right.
And we'll see.
So they're going to bring all the non-essential people back?
Listen, it's.
I just want to know how the Coast Guard didn't get funded by the Pentagon. How did that happen?
All I know is, I really feel really bad for these people that are not getting a paycheck, that are going to get paid back money when they didn't have to show up for work. It's really a good deal. I'll take that job.
Say goodbye, Joe.
Until next week, goodbye.
You've been listening to the Team Martek Hour. The Team Martek Hour is a paid program. The content was provided by the advertiser. WPSL, its staff, management, and ownership were not responsible for its content. Investment involves risk. Prior to making any investment, an investor should meet suitability requirements. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future performance. Neither the opinions expressed nor the information provided constitutes a recommendation to purchase or provide investment advice. The material presented is not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person or firm. Securities offered through Centaurus Financial, member FINRA and SIPC. Tune in again next Wednesday at 11:05 for the Team Martek Hour here on WPSL 1590.